Greetings, folks. This is the weekend of Eroica, California. We won't be attending Eroica, California for reasons which we'll discuss later, but in tribute, we're taking out some of the vintage bikes anyway for a 50-mile ride, and we thought we'd take this opportunity to talk a little about what the phenomenon known as Eroica actually is and explore a little bit of its history. Let's go! Eroica is Italian for heroic, and it's a celebration of vintage cycling that started back in 1997 in the Italian province of Siena. In fact, the original Italian version of the ride, by far the most popular version, is known as La Rorica and still takes place every year on the first Sunday in October on the famed Strada Bianca, or white roads, outside of Chianti. Giancarlo Brochi organized the first La Rorica with the intention of celebrating the glory days of Italian cycling when men like Gino Bartali and Fausto Coppi captured the imagination of a nation and gave hope to a country struggling to find itself again in the wake of a devastating world war. Today, Eroica events are held in 10 countries around the world, including Spain, the United Kingdom, South Africa, Japan, and the United States. Riders are expected to ride vintage bikes, typically lugged steel frames with down tube shifters and toe clips and straps. Riders are also encouraged to dress the part in old-style jerseys and shorts. One of the biggest challenges for riders of vintage bikes can be the gearing, as riders back in the 1980s and earlier typically rode cranks with large chain rings and sported freewheels that often had a low gear cog with only 21 teeth. If a modern cyclist would have rolled up to a race in the 1980s with his now typical 1232 cassette, he would have been laughed off the starting line. Most Eroica riders avoid the gearing issue by modifying to a more forgiving setup with tripleizers, effectively turning their vintage cranks into triples, long cage derailleurs, and larger than period correct freewheels. Sure, you could look on it as cheating a bit, but it certainly helps to make the event more enjoyable. When Rich and I rode our first Eroica out here in California, we pretty much left everything original as far as gearing is concerned, and we did wind up walking lots of the steeper hills. Well, we're at mile 29, a little more than halfway through the ride. We get a lot of comments about how difficult it is to use down tube shifters. I'm going to show you how difficult it is. Ready? Don't blink. There you go. That was tough. Come on. Significantly more difficult is drinking out of these old style metal bidons. I'll show you how it goes. Gotta uncork it. There you go. The first Eroica California was held in 2015 in Paso Robles, and I was excited that there was finally a version of the event being held close enough that I could attend without too much traveling. I took my 1981 Olmo competition, while Rich brought his 1985 Mossy Grand Criterium. Overall, we had a great time, but there were some issues with supplies at the rest stops and placement of signage that needed attention in the future. Sadly, over the years, this never seemed to improve, but every year I hold out hope and eagerly await reports of how the event has finally gotten its act together. Hopefully someday it will, and I'll be the first one headed back down there. For now, while I wait, I'll have to be satisfied with our own little vintage bike celebrations. Of course, someday I'd love to ride the original Italian version, as all reports point to it being magnificent, and the United Kingdom version also looks amazing. Someday. So, in honor of Eroica California weekend, break out those vintage bikes, get riding, and see if you can't imagine, just for a little bit, that you're rolling through that beautiful Italian countryside. Ciao!